A single concrete segment weighs 93 tons. It is 42 meters long. It was poured, cured, stressed, inspected, and approved. Not on a mountainside, not over a river, not in the chaos of an active highway, but inside a climate-controlled building on a factory floor under fluorescent light, 600 kilometers from where it will spend the next century carrying traffic. This is not how humanity has built bridges for the last 3,000 years, and that is precisely the point.
Standing inside this production hall, the first thing that strikes you is the sheer cleanliness of it. You expect mud, scaffolding, the roar of diesel engines. Instead, there are polished floors and digital displays tracking every pour cycle. The segment beside me, Tashay, it's taller than I am and longer than a city bus. This is one of 14 segments that will form a single bridge span, and there are dozens more behind it, each identical to within 2 millimeters.
To understand why this factory exists, you have to understand the crisis it was built to solve. Across the developed and developing world, infrastructure is aging faster than it can be replaced. In the United States alone, more than 46,000 bridges are classified as structurally deficient. In Europe, our post-war era crossings, built for lighter loads and lower traffic volumes, are reaching the end of their engineered lifespans. In Asia, Africa, and South America, the demand is different, but equally urgent. Not replacement, but first-time construction at a pace traditional methods simply cannot deliver. The old way of building a bridge is slow, it is dangerous, and it is, by modern standards, shockingly inefficient. You clear a site, you drive piles, you build temporary supports, you pour concrete in open air, hoping the weather holds. You wait for it to cure, you repeat. You do this for months, sometimes years, while traffic backs up, costs escalate, and entire communities are cut off or rerouted. Every project is essentially a prototype. Designed from scratch, built from scratch, and vulnerable to every variable the environment can throw at it. What if you could do it differently? What if you could engineer the chaos out of the process entirely?
In the casting bay behind me, a fresh segment has just been poured. The concrete mix is monitored in real time. Temperature, humidity, slump, air content, zate, all feeding into a central system. It's the same logic you'd find in an automotive plant. You design the mold once, you perfect it, then you repeat. And the formwork itself is steel, machined to sub-millimeter tolerances, reusable for hundreds of cycles.
The concept is called modular bridge construction. And while the term sounds clinical, the ambition behind it is radical. The idea is to move as much of the bridge building process as possible off the construction site and into a controlled factory environment, where quality can be guaranteed, where schedules are not hostage to rain or freezing temperatures, where labor is safer and more productive, and where every component can be manufactured in parallel rather than in painful sequence. Think of it as industrializing a craft. For centuries, bridge construction has been an act of improvisation. Brilliant, yes, but fundamentally bespoke. Every site is different, at every soil condition, every span. Modular construction does not eliminate that complexity. It absorbs it. It shifts the hard problems upstream into the design phase and solves them before a single truck rolls onto the site.
There's a room here they call the nerve center. It's a glass-walled control room overlooking the entire production line. On the monitors, you can see every active mold, every curing chamber, every quality checkpoint across the factory. One monitor tracks the post-tensioning sequence pulleys, the steel tendons that will be threaded through each segment and pulled to extraordinary tension. Another screen shows the transport schedule whole, which segments are ready, which trucks are en route, which crews are standing by. It runs like a logistics operation.
The engineering at the heart of this process is deceptively sophisticated. Each bridge is broken down into a series of discrete segments. standardized in cross-section but customizable in length, curvature, and load specification. These segments are cast using what is known as the match cast method. The first segment is poured against a fixed bulkhead. The second segment is then poured directly against the first, so their mating faces are a perfect geometric match. When they arrive on site and are joined together, the fit is exact. There are no gaps, no shimming, no guesswork. The tolerances involved are remarkable. We are talking about components the size of a small building, manufactured to accuracies measured in fractions of a millimeter. If a segment is out of alignment by even 3 millimeters over its length, the cumulative error across a 14-segment span could push the finished bridge centimeters off its intended geometry. In bridge engineering, centimeters matter. They matter for load distribution, for drainage, for the long-term fatigue life of every connection.
I'm standing next to one of the post-tensioning stations where you can see these huge ducts. The tendons during the bundles of high-strength steel strand stones are being fed through ducts cast into the concrete. The hydraulic jack doing the pulling is the size of a washing machine, and the sound it makes, a deep, slow groan like, tells you exactly how much force is involved. The technician monitoring the process checks elongation measurements against calculated values. If they don't match, something is wrong, and the segment doesn't move forward.
Once segments are cast, cured, inspected, and approved, the next challenge begins. And in many ways, it is the most visually extraordinary phase of the entire operation. These massive components must be transported from the factory to the construction site, often across considerable distances, through active road networks, but around tight corners, under overpasses, and over weight-restricted routes. The vehicles that carry them are called self-propelled modular transporters, SPMTs. They are flat, multi-axle platforms capable of distributing enormous loads across dozens of independently steered wheels. A single transporter can carry over 1,000 tons. The movement is slow, sometimes no faster than walking pace, and every route is surveyed and rehearsed in advance. Utility lines are temporarily raised, traffic is diverted, police escorts lead the way. It is a logistical ballet performed at 3 in the morning to minimize disruption.
Watching a segment leave the factory is something you don't forget. The transporter inches forward, the segment sitting on temporary cradles, secured with chains and monitored by GPS. The operator controls it with a handheld unit, adjusting each axle independently. I watched one navigate a curve in access, and behind it, 2 more transporters waiting their turn. The site team will receive all 3 segments tonight and have them placed by dawn.
At the construction site, the assembly method depends on the bridge type and the terrain below it. For elevated highway viaducts, a launching gantry is often used, a massive steel truss that straddles the bridge deck and lifts each new segment into position from above. The gantry advances span by span, picking up segments delivered to the deck behind it, swinging them forward, lowering them into place, and holding them while the post-tensioning is completed. For river crossings or deep valley spans, the segments may be lifted by crane barges or cable systems. In some cases, entire spans are assembled on the ground beside the crossing, and then rotated or slid into their final position in a single dramatic operation. A method that reduces the time the waterway or roadway below is obstructed from months to mere hours. The speed advantage is staggering. But a traditionally constructed bridge of moderate complexity might take 18 to 24 months from groundbreaking to ribbon cutting. A comparable modular bridge, with factory production running in parallel with site preparation, can be completed in 8 to 12 months, sometimes less. And because the factory never stops, multiple bridges can be in production simultaneously, their segments queued and shipped on staggered schedules.
One of the project managers
told me something that stayed with me.
He said the real revolution isn't the speed. With traditional construction, a single week of bad weather can cascade into a 2-month delay. Here, the factory doesn't care if it's raining. The segments are cast indoors. The curing is controlled. The schedule holds. And when the segments arrive on site, the crew knows exactly what they're getting at trial because it's already been measured, scanned, and certified before it left the building.
The safety implications are equally profound. Traditional bridge construction is among the most hazardous activities in the civil engineering world. Workers operate at height, over water, beside heavy traffic, in extreme weather, on temporary structures that are, by definition, incomplete. Falls struck by incidents and crane accidents are persistent risks. By moving the majority of the work into a factory, a flat, enclosed, controlled environment, the exposure to these hazards drops dramatically. Studies from projects in the Netherlands and the United States have shown reductions in reportable safety incidents of 50 to 70% compared to conventional construction of similar scope. The economic case is more nuanced, but equally compelling. Factory production requires significant upfront capital. The facility, the formwork, the gantry systems, the quality infrastructure. For a single bridge, the economics may not favor the modular approach, but for a program of bridges, a highway corridor, a rail expansion, a national infrastructure initiative, the math changes completely. The formwork is reused. The labor force becomes more efficient with repetition. Learning curves compress, unit costs fall, and the indirect savings, reduced traffic disruption, fewer accident claims, shorter financing periods, compound over time.
In the quality lab adjacent to the production hall, I watched a technician run a compression test on a concrete cylinder sample. The machine applied force steadily until the cylinder failed, the crack propagating in a neat diagonal, exactly as textbook mechanics would predict. Every batch of concrete is tested this way, but the lab also runs chloride penetration tests, freeze-thaw durability cycles, and alkali silica reactivity screening. These bridges are designed for a 100-year service life. The material science has to match the ambition.
There is an elegance to this system that goes beyond engineering. It is a philosophical shift. Traditional construction treats every bridge as a singular event, a unique confluence of place, purpose, and problem. Modular construction treats it as a repeatable process, one that can be studied, optimized, and scaled. It does not diminish the art of bridge design. It liberates it. Engineers can spend more time refining the structural concept, the aesthetic integration with the landscape, the long-term resilience, and less time wrestling with the logistical misery of pouring concrete in a thunderstorm over a live interstate. Countries that have embraced this approach are already seeing results. The Netherlands has used prefabricated bridge elements for decades, supported by a national standardization framework that allows components to be interchanged across projects. China has deployed factory-built segments at breathtaking scale, assembling elevated rail corridors across entire provinces in timeframes that would be unthinkable using conventional methods. In the United States, the Federal Highway Administration's Accelerated Bridge Construction Program has championed modular techniques as a way to address the country's staggering backlog of deficient structures without paralyzing already congested road networks.
Outside the factory, in the storage yard, completed segments are lined up in rows, each one marked with a unique identifier, date of pour, concrete strength at 7 days, tendon stressing records, dimensional survey data. That every segment is fully traceable. If an issue surfaces 30 years from now, they can pull up the exact batch of cement. That level of documentation is almost unheard of in traditional field construction.
But modular construction is not without its challenges, and any honest assessment must confront them. The joints between segments remain an area of active engineering scrutiny. Epoxy-bonded joints, dry joints, cast-in-place closure pores. Each has strengths and vulnerabilities. Long-term durability under cyclic loading, thermal expansion, and seismic events requires careful design and ongoing monitoring. The transportation of oversized segments poses regulatory and logistical hurdles that vary widely from region to region. And the initial investment in factory infrastructure means that political will and long-term planning horizons are prerequisites. Commodity is not always abundant in public sector decision-making. There is also the question of adaptability. Standardization drives efficiency, but not every crossing fits a standard mold. River gorges, seismic zones, extreme climates, and unusual geometries. These demand bespoke solutions that push the boundaries of what a factory line can produce. The most advanced operations are addressing this through parametric design, using software that can generate custom segment geometries from standardized production logic, allowing variation without sacrificing repeatability.
I spoke with one of the structural engineers here, a woman who spent 15 years building bridges the traditional way before joining this operation. She told me the hardest part wasn't learning the technology, it was unlearning the mindset. On a conventional site, you solve problems as they appear. Here you have to solve them all before the first mold is poured. The discipline is different, the thinking is different. But when it works, smack. When it works, you see a 300-meter bridge go up in 6 weeks, and you realize you're never going back.
This is the inflection point, not just for bridge construction, but for the entire philosophy of how we build the infrastructure that holds civilization together. Roads, rail lines, water systems, energy networks, all of them face the same fundamental tension between rising demand and the limitations of traditional construction methods. The factory that builds bridges like Lego is not just a clever production facility. It is a proof of concept for a different future, one where critical infrastructure is manufactured with the precision of industrial engineering, delivered with the reliability of modern logistics, and installed with minimal disruption to the communities it serves. The bridges coming off this line will carry millions of vehicles, tens of thousands of trains, untold weight over decades. They will endure heat, cold, wind, vibration, and the slow, relentless chemistry of time. They were not built by hand on a riverbank. They were built by a system, designed to be repeated, refined, and scaled to meet a need that is only going to grow.
As the last segment for tonight's shipment is lifted onto its transporter, the factory floor is already being reset for tomorrow's pour. The formwork is cleaned, oiled, and inspected. The rebar cages for the next batch are rolled into position. The cycle begins again. And somewhere, 300 kilometers east of here, a crew is preparing to set a segment that was in this building 72 hours ago.
The greatest infrastructure is the kind you never notice until it isn't there. These factories are making sure it will be. One segment at a time, one span at a time, one bridge at a time. And in doing so, they are quietly rewriting the rules of what is possible. Not with spectacle, but with system. Not with revolution announced, but with revolution delivered, bolted into place, and opened to traffic before the world even realized the old way was already obsolete.